Now, some of you know I lived in a Buddhist temple on 2 different occasions for a total of about 6 years up in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And there was this joke that I routinely inserted into the conversation when people would ask me about my time there that really amounted to me saying something like, well, yeah, that's why I'm so serene, right? Which was intended to be a little bit self-deprecating because I'm not really that serene. But also to despoil the idea that many people have about what it's like to actually live in a temple. You know, people often get disappointed when I tell them stories about how we would fight or what jerks I thought some of the monastics could be. And for those who don't even really have very much relationship with Buddhism, my anecdotes about temple life would sometimes deflate them because the image of the tranquil setting with its community of mindful, whether it was real or not, was somehow just important for people to believe in. And the temple, Buddhist or otherwise, is held up as a refuge. It's a sacred place that we can turn to in times of need. And when we are thirsty, it holds the water that will restore us. When we are frightened or alone, it provides the shelter and the warmth and the encouragement to go on. The temple offers gifts that cannot be measured by any yardstick in the material world. It is a sanctuary. And whether you visit a temple or a church on a regular basis or not, we know that they're always there to help us grow, to become better people. And this is why people leave bequests behind in their will. Sometimes they haven't been for years. They haven't been able to attend for years, but they remain grateful in their minds for that time when the temple existed, when they needed it. Unitarian Universalists or our congregations typically do not inspire the same fantasies that Buddhist temples conjure. We have no ancient stone buildings on high mountaintops amidst the clouds. We have no monastic tradition. Our ministers can be a little too human at times. Too human to meet the lofty ideals that we sometimes want to see in our houses of worship and our leaders. And the community of worshipers, well, perhaps they don't always live up to that ideal either. Sometimes the arguments that the members have or the stupid things that the minister says and does can deflate us. And the lived reality of our worship experience does not meet the ideal of what we think it should be. But is it the vision of what we think it should be, or is it the lived reality of church life that actually helps us fashion our lives in a more compassionate and responsible way? The founder of the Cambridge Zen Center, where I lived, Zen Master Sung San, often told a story about a temple being similar to a pot of cooking potatoes. And he commented that in the West, we wash one potato at a time and then put them in a pot to cook. But in Korea, people put all the potatoes in the pot together, and they, as they boil and cook, they bump into one another, and the friction that they generate knocks the dirt off of it. I've not been to Korea. I have no idea if that story is true. We heard it all the time, though. And, by the time that they were done cooking, allegedly, the potatoes were clean, right? And he would say, being in a temple is like this. The fantasy of the tranquil temple and the mindful practitioner is unreal. It's a chimera. And the fantasy is not that helpful because we project an ideal that we cannot attain. What is real is that we bump into one another. Although we often don't think of it as that helpful. We usually think it's that other person's fault, but it actually can be helpful. So in the Buddhist tradition, there is this belief that all sentient beings have karma, which is attachments derived from past events that are both beneficial and harmful. So karma is the collection of everything that came before, everything that brought you to the chair that you are sitting in right now. right? It is vast and unknowable in its entirety, but it very much has an impact on you for good or ill, an impact on how your life is shaped today. How your great-grandmother treated your grandmother is living inside of you in some way right now. The potatoes of Zen Master Seung San's story are people wrestling with karma. People bump because we haven't worked through our attachments that are causing us to collide from moment to moment. People bump in part because of the actions of another person, and in part because of what we are bringing to a situation. But Seung San never disparaged the bumping together. It's an essential part of the path to awakening, he would say. Bumping together is how we get clean. It's a way to see ourselves. It's a way to see what we are bringing into any situation if we choose. It's the way to see our karma. So as Unitarian Universalists, we don't have a very well-developed theory or theology of karma, a theology of life being shaped by lifetimes of behaviors and events. The vast majority of us are converts, and as a result, we're very sort of future-focused rather than past-focused, because we wanted to leave the faith community that raised us, and we're looking forward. But the metaphor of the potatoes cleaning themselves in the pot is still very useful to us. It seems, in my opinion, unlikely that a God is going to come down and take away our suffering, regardless of how attractive that idea might seem. More likely, in my opinion, is that we are responsible for cultivating the awakened experience moment to moment through the discipline of paying attention. As you use, we do have a theology of being responsible for how we treat one another. It's an encounter I have with you that helps me become a better person. When we understand the temple this way, we can understand how it is only through our shared experience that we can see what is possible. We may want to run away from all of the people in the community who are driving us crazy. Not here, other churches. But literally, we need one another to help us see the path to awakening. If we take the practice seriously, we are able to see what we are bringing to any situation. And perhaps we're able to see that maybe we're trying to control it. Or maybe perhaps we see that we need to stand up for ourselves. What are we bringing to the situation? So I am not free of my karma, right? I bring my own stuff to this starchy soup, some of which will be helpful and some of which I need your help because I still have attachments I need washed off. I'm not free of my karma because no one is ever free of their karma. No one is ever released from the entirety of the past experience and the countless numbers of blessings and sufferings that brought each of you to this moment right now. But we can use it to learn how to make a better world. The point of the pot, this is the pot. Also that room, and the next room. This is our pot. The point of the pot is not to be free of the karma. That's an illusion and a fantasy of a serene temple in a cloud-covered mountain. The point of the pot is to see our karma, to see our attachments, the attachments that we somehow turn into the truth upon which we build a fortress around which we call things right and wrong. So as a congregation, as a people, I hate to break it to you, but we will never stop bumping into one another. I know. That's because we all have karma. I know. But what we can do is learn to see what is causing us to bump, and instead of using that bumping to point fingers and say, Stafford, right? That's not the truth. That's wrong. We're able, also that's usually how when I talk to Stafford, I hear bells like that. We use that moment as a mirror to say, what am I bringing into this moment? What am I bringing into this? What thought of mine has been converted to the truth, which can either be supported or violated by the person I'm encountering? How can the bumping become part of my spiritual practice? How can we learn to see ourselves not just talking with other members, but engaging in holy conversations? Engaging in a spiritual practice of understanding ourselves interrelated to the world around us. Now, I get that also kind of sounds like a fantasy, right? Is it possible to convert all of our conversations into a spiritual practice? Technically, yes. But that's not really my lived reality. Most of the time, I'm swallowed up with administrative tasks that do not feel holy at all. We have staff meetings and board meetings and other meetings and so many meetings and extra meetings on top of the other meetings. And then reports and people complaining that so-and-so did this about so-and-so who did that. And it can feel very prosaic, which is, not spiritual. But technically, yes. Technically, yes. And sometimes I have fantasies of running off to the mountains where the real spirituality is, so I can watch the birds and hear the leaves crunch beneath the feet and touch the earth to remember where I came from, because that's the real spirituality. But that's because I've lost the thread, honestly. I have misplaced the opportunity to see what is happening right in front of me. I have misplaced the opportunity to see this sacred encounter that is staring back at me. And I'd love to say that I was good at it, but I do it all the time. I forget all the time. And that's why I need your help. More pointedly, I really believe that if we did not have community to remind us of the spiritual life, to remind us that it's important, to encourage us, to hold us, we would lose the path altogether. I have a spiritual life because of people, not in spite of them. Because the common refrain is like, God, if Holly just behaved right, I would be more peaceful. But actually it's because of the sacred conversation that Holly and I have that I am able to see how we can make the world better. Our karma is to be in community so that we might work on ourselves, surrendering our attachments to what we believe is the truth and the fortress we have built around our beliefs in right and wrong. If we embrace the pot of potatoes as an opportunity to see through our karma, to see what it is, to understand how it controls us, then it becomes clear that we need community because nothing else has the power to clean us in the same way. The other members of the community need us to encourage them on their sacred journey of understanding themselves and seeing through their truths. You use love to talk about the beloved community as if it's a peaceful place with no conflict, where humans have somehow reached a place where we no longer have differences of opinion, and we wonder why it seems so hard to get there. But that's not where we should be trying to go. Our purpose as Unitarian Universalists extends beyond bringing more justice to the world, beyond building a larger membership or having a better or more successful pledge drive, beyond sharing the blessings of our faith. The world is collapsing beneath the weight of people's attachments to the truth and the fortress that we have built around right and wrong. The world is collapsing beneath the collective karma, the weight of our collective karma. So instead of looking upon this place as a sanctuary from the things we don't like about the world, a sanctuary where we stand on the ramparts, looking out, lamenting the spiritual wasteland that's out there, perhaps it can help us look inward, using our bumping as a mirror. Now, you may have noticed that there are 4 bowls of water stationed in the room. There's 2 in the back. As they say in the airplanes, look for the closest one, it might be behind you. And I hope that you still have that slip of paper that was handed out to you by the ushers. Now, this piece of paper dissolves in water. Whatever you write on it will disappear in a matter of moments. So feel free to write whatever you want on this piece of paper. It is going to disappear. Chris is like, Ian, I hate that tie. It's going to disappear. I'm never going to know. Right? So feel free to know that this is kind of a place where you can just be honest with yourself and it's going to disappear. And now I would like you to imagine a time at this congregation when you have bumped into another person. And I'm sure that it seems like it was all their fault. And it probably was. But let's just imagine a time when you bumped into someone. And, don't choose the worst experience you ever had. Don't do that. That's like trying to run a marathon the first day you put on some sneakers. But, find something mild, like, Colleen, I know you said bring the red fabric, and Nancy brought the yellow fabric, and she always does that because she's trying to control how the quilt goes. Something that's important to you, right? But maybe not like the biggest thing in the entire world. I'm not taking quilting lightly. I take it seriously. But ask yourself, what is this encounter teaching you? What is this encounter cleaning in you? How can it release attachments from you if you allow yourself to see this bumping as a holy conversation? What might happen there? So we're going to play some music for a few minutes, and if you want to just sit and take a few deep breaths, allow the encounter to sink and sit, just breathe, an answer will come. And when it does, make your way forward to one of the bowls where you can put it in, release it, and let it go. For those of you watching from home, take your piece of paper, go through the same process. It won't dissolve in water in the same way, but you can find a way to release the paper and what you wrote on it in some way that feels appropriate. So please, take a few moments to just sink and hear what is coming through you.